Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is episode 7. I will be omitting the name of the podcast for now because I decided that I hate it. I hate the name. I hate saying it. I hate everything about it. And then, like, what if there's an episode where I'm not, like, letting it out, and I just, like, want to talk about, like, some random topics? So I feel like I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. So I'm just going to say, like, 7, 8 until it either grows back on me again or I just completely change it. The name doesn't matter anyway. Also, I must apologize to my loyal listeners. Absolutely no. Actually, one person, my friend Joy, reached out to me and said, "Why haven't you been posting the podcast?" And here's the reason. Okay. And I hate to defend myself and I hate to make excuses because I know I promised that I'm going to be so type A this year, which, by the way, has been going pretty well. And I promised that I would never miss a week again because now I'm going to be like so punctual and like organized and on top of things and all that. I have been, okay? But I had no power in this situation. I record this in the car, obviously, which I hate recording in the car. I hate everything about it. I hate that people walk by and look at me. I hate that it's the dead of winter and I have to leave the heat on low or else it'll be so loud. So it's freezing cold. I hate how it looks visually. I hate the car, but I just wanted to start this. I felt like the longer I just waited until things be perfect, then I would just never do it. So I was like, let's just start it, even if it like isn't the best in the beginning. At least I started it. So that was my mentality. That's why I chose the car because it was like the one place I had that was like peaceful, where I could sit and talk for 2 hours. The issue with recording in the car is that you're reliant on the car. If something happens to the car, you can't record. And that's what happened to me this past month. There was a really bad snowstorm in New York. If you don't live here and if you haven't heard of it, it was the worst snowstorm in the past 10 years. And not only that, it's also then been below freezing since this storm has happened. So none of the snow is melting. Everything is completely frozen. It's like painfully cold outside. So cars aren't working, which we didn't even know the car wasn't working at first. We thought it was just like snowed in. Our street was really, really, really bad. Like cars were getting stuck, buses were getting stuck, sanitation themselves got stuck on our street. So that first week was just off limits. I was like, okay, they're gonna figure this out, and then once everything's cleared out, I can record next week. And then the car wasn't working; it froze, and it wasn't just our car. It happened to our neighbor. It happened to my dad's car. Like people's cars were just freezing because they were buried in snow for days and like not being turned on. It just froze. So I didn't have a car to record in. Luckily, this will be the last episode in the car because if you haven't heard the news, I finally am moving into an apartment with Chris and I will have personal space there and I will be recording the podcast in there. And I've actually never felt so excited in my life. The past year and a half, I can't remember feeling this like full of joy and happiness and like just hopefulness. I have not felt this positive and excited in so long. It feels so good to say that I finally like we signed a lease and we're moving out this weekend because the biggest stressor in my life for the past year and a half almost now has been living at home. It was never supposed to go on this long. I've spoken about this so many times on the podcast. So, like, I don't want to get into it again and just like bore everyone to death with like my childhood and my living situation, all that. But I never intended on moving back home again. I actually, ever since I was 17, made it a point to dorm in college because I wanted my own space ever since then. And then I also moved to LA. And then when I was living in LA and my lease was ending, I knew that I wanted to move back to New York. But it obviously isn't that easy to just like snap my fingers and like the day my LA lease ends, like immediately get a New York lease. So I was like, oh, I'll just live at home for a couple months. Like I'm so lucky that my family lives in New York City of all places. So it's a great location. I can just take the bus or the train and go anywhere where I need to go. All my best friends are there. My boyfriend's there. So I was like, not the end of the world. Like I can live at home for a few months. And I thought that I was going to move out on my own at first, which then there were so many obstacles in the road with like trying to move in by myself here. It's way harder in New York than it is in LA. This is my first time because I've never like lived in an apartment in New York City. I've only like dormed in New York. And then I lived in LA, so I never went through the whole process of like touring apartments and all of that in New York. It was a reality check for me that was really difficult. Then eventually me and Chris decided that we're gonna move in together, and then we had to like wait, whatever. So finally, fast forward, we finally got an apartment. Everything's great. We finally got an apartment. I'm so excited to move in, not only together, but also just like to get out of my family's house. Like I if I could seem like a completely new person on all my socials and on the podcast and everything, just know that's why. Like I have a will to live again, and I'm so excited. I'm really really excited. With that being said, I thought a really good theme for this week, since it's February, Valentine's Day is this weekend. I'm moving in with my boyfriend Chris, to make it like relationship themed, because I don't think I've ever even mentioned anything like relationship wise on this podcast yet. Not that I have like too much to offer in the relationship world, because I do have a long term boyfriend. We've been dating now for. Okay, so that's what we're going to get into in this episode. I never know exactly when to say how long we've been dating, because me and Chris did have a really rocky road. And yeah, that's why I wanted to make the whole topic of this video right person, wrong time, because that's what I believe happened to me and Chris. And I see a lot of other celebrity couples, even just people I know in real life, who were together at some point and things did not work out. Maybe to the general public, they're like, what the hell? Why are you guys back together? But it makes sense to them. And I know a lot of people look down on this, like let's say Haley and Justin Bieber. They're like, he doesn't love her, he left her, and he only went back to her because Selena didn't want him. And people always view it as like when you break up with someone and then get back together with them down the line, that one of you or maybe neither of you really wanted to do that, and it was more like a last resort option, and you're just desperate and you're like, well, I know that person would take me back, so I'm just going to go back to them. I feel like that's how a lot of people look at breaking up and getting back with each other. So I think I'm the perfect person to talk about this, because me and Chris did meet in college. I was a junior at the time and he was a sophomore. I am 11 months older than him. I try not to talk about it that much. I'm not proud of being a cougar. I actually, like, when people ask us how old we are and I have to say I'm 27, he's 26, I shiver. Shivers go down my spine. I don't enjoy it. That 1 month that we are the same age is my favorite month. Like, that's the only month you're allowed to ask us how old we are. But anyway, that's not the point. That is, though, like, why we didn't meet until later on in college, because I went to Marist College, now Marist University. If you're not from New York, it's kind of a smaller, is it considered private? I think so. It's a smaller school in upstate New York. It's in Poughkeepsie. I think total at the time when I was there, at least, it was like 5,000 students. That's considered small. Even though 5,000 seems like a lot of people, when you really break it down to like undergrad students, and then like within each grade, there's like what, 1,000 in each grade. So kind of everyone in every grade knows each other. It was also like a bar school, is how we would describe it. Like, it wasn't like a frat school that you're going to frat parties. It was a bar school. Like, we had our designated bar on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, even Tuesdays. So everyone was kind of going to the same places. And then only like the older kids would go to the ones that you needed to be actually 21 for. So kind of like everyone knew each other. So at the point that I was at in junior year, I thought I already knew of every boy in the school, you know? Like, I was like, I already know like every cute boy that exists in this school, and I don't really like any of them. Well, okay, let's not say that. I did have a few crushes before Chris, but like none of them went anywhere. Anyway, so when I first met Chris, it was the end of my junior year, end of his sophomore year. I you know what? I'm gonna say it was love at first sight, which maybe lust at first sight, because I knew nothing about him. All I knew was that he was extremely tall, and I found out we were just like in a room with a bunch of people. It wasn't like me and him were speaking to each other. I heard him telling someone, or like someone told me that he was from Queens, and I'm from the Bronx, and most of our school were people from like Connecticut, Westchester, New York, Long Island, Jersey, and honestly, I feel like that's why I always like really struggled with like boys in my school because I just felt like I had nothing in common with them. Like imagine being a girl from the Bronx. I know I sound like J Lo, like how much I mentioned being from the Bronx. Just a little girl running through the streets of running down the block in the Bronx. I know I mentioned a lot. Anyway, it really did shape my character a lot. And like I went from growing up in the Bronx and going to this like really expensive school. I think our fun fact in our school was that like 10% of the students in our school were in the 1% of America. So my school was filled with like extremely wealthy kids. Like some of their parents, like some of the kids I knew, their parents were like famous CEOs. All of them, like when they went back for the holidays, were going back to these like huge houses in Connecticut and Jersey and Long Island. And I think that's when I started like I've mentioned this on TikTok that I used to lie like crazy. Like I would lie like crazy when people would ask me about like my high school and like my childhood. I would just come up with whatever I wanted. I was like, yeah, I grew up in the Upper East Side. I would just lie because I was like, I'm probably never going to talk to this kid again. Like, I'd rather just say something just random than have to get into the whole thing that I'm from the Bronx and then they're going to make some like crazy remarks like, oh, you're from the Bronx. So I would just lie. That was my coping mechanism at the time. And I think I've mentioned this before. Like, this might be one of the reasons why I like became so bottled up because I knew I was surrounded by like such judgmental people and that if I really was like honest and talked about my real upbringing that they would probably judge me and like I didn't think anyone would like me or anything like that. So I kept a lot of my like actual self hidden and especially my first 2 years when I was in college I feel like I really was just like trying to be someone else. Like I just was fully putting on a show and pretending that I was someone else. And maybe it's why I'm like honestly really grateful that me and Chris met at the time we did junior year because I feel like at that point of my college experience, I was starting to get more comfortable and like starting to be myself again. I found my core friend group and I feel like things were just getting better at that point. My first 2 years in college were really rough. Anyway, I mention all of that because when I found out Chris was from Queens and I like thought he was so cute. I was like, "Oh, that's my future husband." I was obsessed with him from the beginning, but he was really shy. I was really shy. Also, like the way I didn't mention this, and I've made a short like TikTok talking about how me and Chris met, and I didn't mention this because it's kind of awkward to even say. But the way that I actually met Chris was that so when I met him, my best friend Kate, who you've probably heard me talk about her a million times, I say she's like my sister. I'm going to be her maid of honor. She was abroad that semester. So we were attached to the hip. When she went abroad, I was kind of left to fend for myself. I didn't have that many friends. Like I had friends, but just like friends in passing, like class friends, going out friends. So I was kind of like trying to make new friends. And I entered this like new girl group at the time and one of them was like who liked Chris and like we went to this party or whatever it was because she was the one that like knew him. So obviously I didn't speak to him this day. I just saw how tall and gorgeous he was and knew he was from Queens. And actually I have text message evidence from this day texting my best friend Kate. She was abroad in Italy saying like, Kate, you're never going to believe this. Like I just met this really tall boy who's from Queens. His name's Chris. How have we never heard of him before? Like I didn't know there was anyone even from Queens in this whole school. Like how have we never met him before? I ended up finding out that he was a grade below us and let's just say I considered him off limits because of this girl. So this whole situation happened the beginning of my junior year, like when I first laid eyes on him. But then all of those circumstances were into play. So I never spoke to him. We literally never spoke. We didn't follow each other in anything completely. Just acknowledged him, registered him as a character in my mind. I would joke with my friend, like, wonder where Chris is, wonder what Chris is doing. But we never spoke until the end of that school year. It was like May of my junior year, so like right before the semester is about to end. I saw that the girl who like is the reason why I met him was fully like dating someone else, like fully hard launching another guy. And she actually also was transferring out of our school. So I was like, okay, wait, I think this is like safe now for me to like approach him. which me approaching someone sounds like a joke. I don't even know. I don't even want to know what I said. I genuinely don't want to know what I said. But my best friend Kate was back. This was the second semester, so she was back from Italy, and she encouraged me to go up to him at our school bar. Little backstory: the reason he was even at that bar that night, allegedly, according to him, was because there was like this one other friend that we had mutual, one of Chris's guy friends. That friend saw my Snapchat story saying where I was going to be that night, and he told Chris that he should come out because he knew that I had a crush on him. So that this kid, his name's Joe. This kid Joe may be the reason why me and Chris are together this day. He's who encouraged Chris to go out the night. We started speaking. Everything was sunshine and rainbows. I was obsessed with him. Like, we hit it off immediately. It was the first time in my entire college experience that I just felt like I instantly clicked with someone. I was like, yep, I'm gonna have a boyfriend now. Like, this is amazing. I love him. We just like instantly clicked, and we both really liked each other. And then things started going wrong really, really quickly, actually. So, like I said, this all happened like right before the school year ended. And then that summer, Chris lives in Queens. I was in the Bronx with my family. By the way, those two boroughs border each other. They're connected by one bridge. They're very, very close to each other. We probably live like a few miles apart, our families. So that whole summer, he just was not reaching out to me. He wasn't texting me. I would text him and like try to insinuate, like, should we hang out this summer? He never once asked me to hang out. Never. I feel like that whole summer we like barely spoke. So I was kind of crashing out that whole summer. I was like, oh my God, like he hates me. He doesn't like me. I was crashing out that entire summer. Once we went back to school that semester, long story short, it wasn't working out. And then for like 2 years, we really hardly spoke. We would try to make it work again, like every few months, kind of. Like he would text me or I would text him, and then it just like didn't work. It just didn't work. He was still in school. I was already graduated and like working an adult job while he was still finishing his senior year. It just didn't feel right. I think he did something to like really piss me off too, and then I that's when we like went zero contact. I ended up moving to LA. My first few months in LA, I was single. That was my first time like being on the dating apps. Like, that was my first time really as an adult going on like real dates. And it always just felt so weird to me. Like, I don't think from any of like the first dates I went on in LA they ever went well. They never went well. And I always in the back of my mind always felt like I was trying to find someone again that I like liked as much as I liked Chris. And not only that, I feel like so before Chris, I wouldn't really say I had a type. Like, I never was like I need to be like with a boy that looks like this. And I feel like after I met him, whenever I was like meeting guys or going out, I always felt like I was looking for someone that like looked like him. Like, suddenly my type became like super tall with long hair, and I think that's an issue. I think that like if you're looking for someone just to replace someone in your past, that's you're not going to meet the right person because you're just like trying to replace someone. I was in LA for a few months at this point. Chris actually texted me on my birthday when I was living in LA and said, "Hey Lizzie, happy birthday. I saw you lived in LA. Like, so happy for you. I actually got a job where I traveled to LA a lot, and I'm going to be there next week." I didn't answer. I saw the text and I swiped deleted. I didn't answer because I was like, I am not. I just moved across the country. I'm starting completely new. The absolute last thing I'm doing is going back to a boy from college who would barely answer my Snapchats. Like, that's just not happening. We're leaving that in the past and we're going to find a real man. Like, that was my mentality. So I didn't answer. Fast forward few more months, he messaged. Actually, in between these few months, I had this really bizarre situation happen. And okay, when I say this story, you're gonna be like, oh my God, that was Chris doing that to you. No, it wasn't. I know who it was. There was this really psychotic person, boy, who was tormenting me when I was living in LA and doing this really strange thing. If you know that app that you can like make people call you, like, it looks like your phone number and your contact is calling someone else. They were doing that to me and like doing it vice versa all day, every day, even at 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. they would make it look like I'm calling my friends. They did this for like a week, and at first I was like, it must be someone I know from home because they were doing it with my friends from like college. It was like my best friend Nikki and her boyfriend. Some freak every night was making it look like either they were calling me or I was calling them. So I was like, it must be some like crazy person from college that has both of our phone numbers. And then the next week, it starts happening with my new LA friends. And then it was happening with like more of my LA friends as time was going on. And that's when this person kind of really gave themselves up because I really thought logically, like, who in the world has all of these people's phone numbers? And there was only one person. There was only one person. Like they made it quite obvious because as time was going on, they kept doing it and doing it. And I noticed like they were doing it with people that they like just met last week. So now they have that person's phone number and now they're doing it. I still guys, I still don't know why this person did this. I don't know what they gained from this. They would do it and then just stay silent. There was one time he did it and just was like breathing. It was really creepy. But once I like discovered who it was, what I did was I changed my phone number. And then when this person was, I was kind of friends with him at the time. When this person realized I changed my phone number, he was like, "Oh, why'd you change your phone number?" I was like, well, there was this crazy person fake calling, and I looked it up, and it's actually a felony, and I'm gonna like go to the cops about it. But I just changed my number in the right for right now so it can stop. And I think I scared him, and he never did it again. Anyway, I had to get a new phone number. A few months later, Chris messages me on Instagram this whole emotional message, which took me for a shock because Chris was never emotional. Like in the, I think I downplayed when I was talking about our college relationship, but it really went on for like months and months of us like trying to make it work. And within those months of us being together in college, I feel like we never even like talked about anything personal. So when I got this like super emotional message from him, like apologizing for everything and like saying how much he misses me and thinks of me, I was like, what is going on? Like, I don't even know who this person is. Like, we never spoke to each other in this way before. So the message started out with saying, I saw you blocked my number. And then he went into all that. And I was like, I have to respond because I want to let him know that I didn't block his number. I just had to get a new phone number. I'm like, I don't hate him. I just had to get a new phone number. So I responded, and all I said was, I didn't block you. I just had to get a new phone number. And then once I sent that message, he sent me like a whole other thing. And then that's when I was like, should I just give him another chance? We went on this date in LA. We went to Il Pastel, and it really felt like I was on a date with like a completely different person. Like it felt at this point like I might as well have just went on Hinge and like we just met on Hinge, like, and we were strangers before this date. It felt like a completely different person. I don't know what kind of sorcery happened to Chris within those like 2 years of us not speaking. I think the biggest thing maybe was that he graduated because when you're in college, if you've dormed, you might know this that when you're dorming and you're like on a college campus, that's your life, and outside of college world doesn't feel real. Like it just doesn't feel relevant. The only thing that matters is college and what's going on campus and what's going on with your friends, and like that's the only thing that matters to you. Your whole life is college and your college life. So I feel like that was the biggest reason why it wasn't working out for us, especially that year that I was graduated, he was still in there. But I think him graduating and like being in the real world, and then also he got a job. One thing that honestly brought me peace when me and him weren't speaking and I considered that like completely over, Chris was really bad in school. Like really bad in school. He was failing nearly all his classes. So something I told myself to like feel better was like, okay, I wouldn't want to be with him anyway. Like I don't even know how this kid's gonna get a job. But he ended up getting a job in music, which is always what he always wanted to do. He always like was really into rappers. So it's really great that he got a job that was something he was actually good at and like didn't need to know how to solve a math equation for. I can't even imagine Chris doing like a regular corporate job. Like I can't fathom him as an accountant or something. I think his major was finance. I don't know how he would have coped as a finance bro. So thank God for the music industry. And I think him being in a job that he was actually really passionate about, and like being out of school and all of that, and like just growing and maturing really changed him a lot. And I just couldn't believe that this was the same person. I knew that this probably wasn't going to last because he was still living in New York. He was only in LA for like a work thing, but he wasn't living there. So I was like, okay, he's going to go back home now, and like we're probably never going to speak again. And I think that Valentine's Day, because this happened in January, that Valentine's Day, he came back to LA, got me like all these gifts, planned a whole date. And then that's when I was like, okay, wow, he actually like completely changed. Don't really consider us dating though until the end of that summer because we were doing long distance. But since it was still really early on, it wasn't like we were close enough that he was coming and staying with me. Like he would come for work and stay at like a hotel for a few days and then go back. So I still like didn't really know what we were at the time. I didn't know if I wanted to do long distance because at the time I was still thinking to myself like I just moved all the way to LA. Like, do I really want to be doing this? Do I really want to be like long distance with someone that I'm going to see like every other month? But as like time kept going on and we were getting more serious, then that's when we started like really speaking about things and like what we are and all that. And then he would start coming and staying with me, and he would stay for like long periods of time, and everything kind of just like slowly blurred into us dating. Okay, I just made this entire episode just talking about the origins of me and Chris. But the reason why I wanted to tell my story is because I feel like in situations like the one that we were in, or maybe in situations that someone met in high school, or like let's say Haley and Justin again, they met super young and like in the beginning of them getting all this fame. When you meet someone at a stage in your life that you don't even know who you are yet, you're still so young, you're still figuring out what you want to do with your life, you're still figuring out what you want in a partner, you're still figuring out where you want to live one day. It's really hard from that early on to be able to just lock in and commit and be like, yeah, I know for a fact this is the person that I want to be with for the rest of my life, and then also know how to navigate a serious relationship. I look back and I'm honestly so grateful that our story happened the way that it did, and that we haven't been just actually dating since the middle of college. I'm really happy that we had our time apart for several years and got to grow on our own. I probably would have never moved to LA if I was like in a serious relationship with someone straight out of college. So I can't imagine us like doing all of that growing together. I know a lot of couples do it, and there's so many couples that are happily married today that met in college and have been together since that day they met in college, and kudos to them. I don't know how they did that, but I'm really happy for myself that that's not how it worked out for me. I know so many people look down on this and look down on relationships that were from the past and now you're like getting back into it, because so many people view it as like what I mentioned earlier in the episode, that you're just settling. And I actually, someone told me this. Someone that was like a really close friend of a friend when I was living in LA. I had this like birthday party in my new apartment when I first moved in with Almond Kate. We had this like big party. We had all of our friends over, and that was the first time that like Chris met everyone. And I remember this person that was like a really close friend of one of my friends was like, "Wait, I didn't know that you met Chris like from college. Wait, why are you dating him? Like you should be dating someone that has like clout in LA. Like you should date like an influencer or something." I had no idea he was from college. I didn't even know what to say to this person. Like how do you even respond to that? By the way, this was on my birthday in my apartment with him right there with all my friends there. And I was like, yeah, we met in college, but we re-met here, and also like he works in LA. Like I don't even remember what I said. I remember just being like so thrown off guard. By the way, just to give you some context, the person that said this to me was a bartender in LA. So it's not like they were at the peak of the LA social pyramid and were trying to give me some advice or something. They were a bartender. I don't know where they were trying to go with that, but I will never forget the person saying that to me. I've since then unfollowed them on everything and I've never spoken to them again. I see people have this conversation with a lot of the like influencers too, especially Hallie Kate and Reed. If you're like in the New York City influencer circle, by the way, she follows me, so I love her, but I do feel like she did it by accident. If it wasn't an accident, that's awesome. But for some reason, I feel like it was an accident. Clearly, I'm in support of people getting back together because it really sometimes is the right person and just the wrong time. Who's to say that you shouldn't spend the rest of your, or at least give a chance to this person that you will possibly spend the rest of your life with just because it didn't work out when you were younger? If that's the person that you can really see a future with and you can see that person as the future father of your children, and you're not going to give it a chance just because you're worried what other people are going to think and you're worried people are going to think you're settling, I think that's just like not a good enough reason. I think the only good enough reason why you should never take someone back is if they were abusive, whether it was mentally or physically, or they were like seriously manipulating you and you felt like they were a threat and you felt in danger in the, or if they cheated on you. I feel like those are all situations that you should never go back to someone for obvious reasons, especially if it was abusive. But even if it was just a super super toxic relationship, it might not be the best idea to go back because I feel like you will never forget what they did to you if it was that severe. Even if they changed a lot, I feel like if they were extremely toxic in the past, it'll be really hard for you to ever like forget that. It'll be really hard to just forgive and forget. You'll always have it in the back of your mind and you'll like hold it over them. And if you feel that weight that you still kind of resent them for what they did in the past, then I think there's no saving it at that point. If it truly was just right person, wrong time, and the relationship didn't work out at the time that you first tried just because of maybe financial situations or your age or maturity levels. I feel like if those are the reasons why it didn't work out and you really had such a strong connection with this person, it's worth it to give it another chance. So this is a team Hallie and Reed situation over here. I think she's mentioned too that like when that whole thing went down and Reed said that he doesn't love her and he doesn't see a future with her, he was like 22 and like new to New York City. He's from somewhere in like the Midwest. He went from like random state in the Midwest to now living in New York City. It was his first time living in a major city. Like I see where he was coming from because that's also how I felt when like Chris was trying to get me back. I was like, do I really want to like go back to this guy and like settle down after I just moved across the country? Like I understand that mentality that you're like, am I rushing into things? Should I take advantage of the fact that I'm like young and single in a new city? But I think it takes time and like thought to be able to come to the conclusion that I care about this person a lot and I know that they're my person. And that's more important to me than just like being single in a new city. I genuinely don't think I will ever meet someone again that I feel this strongly about and I connect with in this way. And if you meet someone that you seriously see a future with and you connect, can't take that lightly, especially if you're listening to this and you're single. You might understand that like it's so hard to find someone these days in a world that people think they have unlimited options and there's like so much stimulation going on and there's so many ways to meet people. People feel like they have to go through every option imaginable before they settle down with someone, because even if they maybe have met the person, like the best person for them, they're still thinking in the back of their heads because of social media and dating apps and all these things like, what if I could find better? And I think it's really just like messed up everyone's mindsets. Imagine if Justin Bieber always had that mentality like, I'm not going to settle down because I could find better. He would be thinking that for the rest of his life because he will constantly be finding better. There will be a new A-list celebrity, a new biggest singer, a new beautiful young girl. Like, there'll always be, I mean, that's not technically better, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't know. I think it's really hard to find a good person these days that you're also attracted to, that you also have a connection with, that you also have a healthy, happy relationship, and you both want the same things for your future. When you find someone that checks all those boxes and everything feels right, that really does not come that often. That's what I believe is a soulmate. I think it says a lot that you can separate from someone for years even and still be thinking of them. And the fact that you're still thinking like, "Oh no, did I make the wrong decision?" If you don't try it with them again, you're going to have that regret forever. Like, "Oh no, that was my fault." And they'll always be the one that got away. Maybe they won't though. Maybe you do try it again and then that gives you the closure and you're like, "Oh, thank God that didn't work out." But I see nothing wrong in going back to someone in the past if that's truly your soulmate. And that's how I feel about relationships that didn't work out the first time around. But when it's the right person, I think it'll always work out eventually. They'll always come back into your life at some point. Maybe it's when you're 60 years old. If I would love to hear some stories like that of people rekindling when they're like 60 and they were like a high school couple. I think that happened with like J Lo and Ben Affleck, right? But then it didn't work out. Then they broke up again. So maybe they're not a good example for this case study. Haley and Justin are my favorite example for this case study. Also, there's this random couple that I know from middle school. Like both of them I just like followed. I hardly knew either of them, but I feel like that was just a thing in middle school. Like you just followed anyone that you slightly knew. I knew both of these people from middle school. They dated in middle school, and that must be like 15 years later now. I just saw they got engaged. They got back together like 2 years ago. And the boy, fully had another girlfriend for like 6 years. And then they broke up. And within like a year of him breaking up with that other girl, he got back with the middle school girlfriend. And now they're engaged and she's pregnant. Imagine telling your kids that story one day. Like, yeah, we dated in middle school. Then he went and found this other girl, like trying to find a replacement for me, and it didn't work out. And then he realized that he needed to come back to his first and only true love. Like, I think that's pretty awesome. The reason I don't like to give that much relationship advice is because Chris really is my first and only true, serious, long term relationship. And even that, I know people look down on that too. I'll see that too. People are like, you're his first girlfriend. Not to me. Like, people aren't saying that to me, but I'll see them say that to like public figures. They'll be like, yeah, and you're his first girlfriend. And they say it as like an insult. They think that like your relationship isn't going to last and isn't real because that's just your first relationship and you don't know anything. And that first relationship is kind of just like a big love bomb. And you think you love this person, but then like you don't really know until you have another one. People think you shouldn't like get married until you've had several long-term relationships, but I personally can't grasp that. Meeting so many people that you got to the level that you want to be in this like serious committed relationship with and see a future with them, and then break up and then do that several times. Like, why is that the recommended route? I don't know. I'm really curious to hear people's thoughts on that. I do see that a lot. People saying like, oof, you didn't tell us that was your first boyfriend. And they make it seem like a threat. Like, oh, since that's your first boyfriend, it's not gonna work out. I don't get it. I don't get it. So anyway, that's my backstory on how me and Chris got back together and why I'm clearly in support of couples that break up and get back together. And I'll always root for them and I'll never ever judge them. I hope everyone has a really fun Valentine's Day. Even if you're single, you have a really fun Galentine's Day. I actually really love Valentine's Day. And I know I'm always saying I'm like really not emotional or romantic or sentimental or any of that. I like Valentine's Day. Maybe because I like consumerism and I just like cute things. I like when you go into a store and it's like themed for that holiday. I like the cute little gifts. I like that Valentine's Day gifts are like cute things. It's not like Christmas that you're like, oh, I have to go buy this person a coffee machine. It's like I just have to get them a cute little stuffed animal of their favorite animal and some chocolates. And I don't really like writing notes or letters, but for some people that must be fun. And like a picture frame, and it's more just like cute, meaningful things, and not all about the gift giving of it all. And I like that you can wear a cute outfit, and it's an excuse to like do something different on a date night. Like me and Chris go out to eat a lot already. So just like going out to a restaurant really wouldn't like feel that special, especially because they're all like prefix on Valentine's Day. So this year we're gonna do something fun. We're going to like a museum, and then we're going to a new restaurant. Last year we went out to the Hamptons for Valentine's Day, which was really fun because we've never been there in the winter, like with snow everywhere and there's way less people. So that was a really fun Valentine's Day idea, actually. Also, if you're still here before we go, I want to get your feedback if you think that I should return to Twitch. I do know though that the audience of my podcast are late 20s to early 30s women. So I'm not sure if that's the demographic that's going to tune into Twitch. But I actually used to stream on Twitch, but I was playing like Fortnite on there. And this was also like 2 years ago now. So it's been a while. I think my demographics changed a lot. I think what I talk about changed a lot. But actually, a girl who works at Twitch listens to this podcast, and she was like, I love your podcast. And I love the style of it. And I think you're really good at just chatting, which is like a topic they call on Twitch. And she asked if I would want to come back to Twitch. And whenever someone tells me that they listened to an entire episode and like they'll mention something I said at the 30-minute mark, it makes my day. I hearing one person say they listen to my podcast is the equivalent of getting a video with like a million views. It fills me with serotonin. Like, I can't believe someone took an hour out of their day to listen to me. I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. I'd also be down to do like live streaming while cooking or anything like that. I love live streaming. The only thing that like makes me stay away from it is I just feel like I'm too old for it, and I feel like that's for like the younger kids. So that's the only thing that like kind of scares me about it, but I do really want to get back into it, and I'm curious if that's something that you guys would ever want to tune into. I love you guys so much, and we'll talk next week in a new location.